Thank you so much for coming for our co-creation lab. Today, something special is happening, I think, because some people had to send me a last-minute message saying that they had a couple of issues to come. But I'm very happy that you guys came over so we can keep on going and on our process and flow. But unfortunately, we won't have the talk about a little bit about Prosocial world as we would like to have, but we're very fortunate to have the time and talk about Collab Soul, which I think is going to be very special too. And at the same time, to share a little bit more about what's happening in the project and what else is happening and what else we would like to have support of everybody's in this flow, in this co-creation journey that we are having so fortunately. So thank you so much. Today, I will try to speak in Spanish and hola, Oscar, porque hoy vamos a tener nuestro privilegio.
We are going to have the privilege of presenting one of the intentions that we have around our project, which is an objective or purpose, a common purpose that we would like to share with you, and that is about the possibility to get to know each other, but we have to learn how to look for the means to do so, in the sense that that will allow us to know our mutual challenge, either this year or the year to come, which will be around Colombia in Barichara. So I would like to invite you, Oscar, to make the checking round today, just to understand a bit more about the context in Barichara. Thank you, Michelle. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, if you are from Australia. I would like to get started in this check-in round, resorting to our, just cutting with our routine. Just breathe deeply, breathe, inhale, sustain the air, and get rid of the air. Sustain the emptiness. Breathe, inhale again. You retain your breath and you exhale. We sustain the emptiness, we inhale, and we exhale. Good. I would like to ask you about a place that it will be important in your childhood, that gives you good memories of your childhood, something that you have kept in your heart from your childhood, and that you carry along and has been with you all this time. Who would like to get started sharing that memory? Well, your childhood is not so far away, I hope. Ceci says, I want to get started. I'm far away from my childhood, but before I forget, I would like to share with you. For me, it was very important to be born at the seaside, in front of the sea. My family was not from the coast, but they emigrated to the coast to work. And having had the chance to live my first years of childhood in front of the sea was very important for me. I remember being always being in a boat, just navigating in the sea, because for me the sea is a synonym of peace, a place to recharge my soul. So I feel fortunate to have had that in my childhood. That's what I see. Cheers. I would like to give the floor to Adrian.
Hey, thank you very much, Stacey. Hi to everyone. So for me, I think now, In my country, we have two official languages. We have English and French. So I would say in my childhood, I was fortunate to be born in the English part of my country. Now, I say this because nowadays I get to work only in the French part. Now, for a very long time, I speak just French when I work, like all the villages and everywhere we are, we speak just French. Now, if I was not born in the English part, I will never know how to speak English because here it's very complicated. We work with communities that speak French and also their mother tongue. So I was fortunate enough to be born in the English part that speaks English. That's why now I had the basics of English, and I grew up in that way. Now I speak French at work, and now it makes it balanced. Now I could speak two languages. Why? Because of my childhood, where I was born, where I come from. So I could easily express myself in English and French. So I am very grateful for the opportunity I had when I was young. Okay, so yeah, that's it. That's what I could share about my childhood. I'll pass it to Mateos.
Hi, everyone. Well, a place that I remember and that I really enjoy from my childhood is the street in front of my house, because there I got together with several other kids, like 30 people, early in the morning, and I spent all day with them, sometimes even to another day, you know. My mom even had to call me because I spent the whole day there playing. And we learn a lot in these relationships, in these close relationships with the people who live with us, right? I mean, a lot of my character and the things that I am today, they were formed there in the street, you know, playing with a kite and playing soccer. So this street in front of my house that I look every day is a place that I'm very fond of from my childhood. And so now I'd like to pass the floor to you, Oscar. I don't know if you have spoken already, if you were going to be last, but anyway, I call you.
Vale, yo quisiera ir de último para empezar con la
I would
presentación.
like to be at the last one, so I would like to give the floor to Marcelo.
Gracias, Oscar. Bueno, voy a tentar hablar en
Well,
español.
I would like to try to speak in Spanish. My memory is where I lived in Sao Paulo, which is a big city in Brazil. I used to live in a building of apartments where all the cars were parked on the basement. And in this area, all the kids played with bicycles and with balls. So I have memories of playing with children, which was not very close to nature because it was in between the cars. But I have very fond memories of that time, just playing for hours with my friends. And I love to ride bicycles. It's very curious to talk about this now, because nowadays I have a very different connection. But at that time, my life was in the city, and I spent my childhood in those buildings. And I would like to give the floor to Michelle. Thank you, Marcelo.
About my childhood when Oscar was guiding us, and it was interesting because I'm not really sure where it was. And I was actually, before saying, I was looking for the words that could be in English or Spanish, because it's like mouth of like tall grass, you know, like, and then I think it was just like I don't know, it's a country house where my parents took me. And I remember that the first move that I did, it was just running and jump on it. But it was like a grass, right? It looks like it was very fluffy, but it was very like nothing, right? You just jump and it falls apart. And I remember of that movement of seeing that nature. And right after I left, they used to have that animal. I forgot to look for that name. In Portuguese, it's called bicho preguiça. And I don't remember how it was, but it looks like I cannot say that it's a monkey, but usually holds and usually sleeps a lot and have big, big, long arms and legs. And I remember when I had that experience, right after, they took me to this animal that I didn't know why they had that. And the animal hugged me and I was so scared. But after, I was feeling so embraced and I was feel so loved and taken care of. The same time that I was scared, I was feeling so great that I was being held by this, I don't know, Bicho Preguiça slot. Yes. So this is the one that Mateus is showing, because this is not common in Brazil. Don't think that this is normal, because it's not. But I remember I was very little. I had this jump, and then right after came. For some reason, that memory came out to me that I felt very special. And from that moment, I kept on myself feeling how much I had separate myself from that feeling of being together with nature. And this is something that I kind of looking forward to get back on that. So thank you, Oscar, because that was something that was very hidden in my memories. And I don't think even Marcelo knew that. So I'll pass.
Vale. Ay, dale.
Sorry,
Vale.
you can. Thank you of you. And I would like to share my screen. Yes, we see the screen. This is the place that I remember when I was a child. It's a big tree that we have in Barichara, which is about 200, 300 years old. And that was my school. Before, they have more classrooms and there was more trees. But what I remember from those years in my childhood, it was that this world was not present, and nothing was sold at the school, not sodas, not candies. So an aunt brought me, a very old lady who brought me something to eat, who was also responsible for growing up my father, my uncles, my aunts. We never knew exactly how old she was. So for me, this place is the most dear memory of my childhood, because I remember love, care, friendship. So that's a scenery from Barichara, which is like that today. We are an old town. Our territory is based on the territory of the Guane Aboriginal community, which got extinguished. We lived the Holocaust, the extinction of this indigenous community. We have still some remainings, like the working with the clay and weaving, which are the only things which remain. But I just wanted to present you with some of the traces of the past of the territory. You are most welcome, and you are going to come. So to share something of our history, our town was founded in 1705. Some farmers saw a Virgin Mary, and so they decided to establish a town called in a place called Valle Chali, which means place to rest. And the town was established here. Those are some pictures of the central park, which is quite different at present. And all the floor is paved with the stones, with a special stone. It looks more similar to this picture right now, but still different. The church is the feature which remains up to the present. It's an old town, and an old town which also reflects the history of Colombia, its conflicts. We have stone workers, which have made famous Barichara with their stonework. That's one of the traditional labors in our country. So our houses and all the streets in Barichara are paved with these streets, which is typical of our territory. Those are the tools, and this labor is still very active in Barichara. The agriculture has been also one of the main labors in Barichara. Here we can see people hanging tobacco leaves in canelles, which are places especially designed to dry tobacco. That labor, for example, was the one which originated one of the first conflicts that we had between the in our community. A big movement of the community people was born in this area in the 1700s, and around 20,000 people at that time unite forces to go to Bogota to fight against the taxation that the Spaniards imposed on people. It's a long story, but let's say after the community movement, short later afterwards came our liberation campaign at the head of Simón Bolívar, which is the one you are seeing here. Bolívar went through Barichara several times and passed this area in several occasions. And the people of this area also fought in that independence conflict. After the independence from the Spaniards, we lived a very conflictive period with violence. And the wars we live past one and transform into each other until the 19th century. We had a big conflict, the War of the 1,000 Days, and we see here how that war was fought even by children. And the place where the final and decisive fight of this war took place is very close to Barichara, near Bucaramanga as well. This war culminated after 3 years of conflict. This is the Chicamocha Canyon, which is very close. We are part of this landscape, and which is divided in 2 groups. And this territory was divided, as I said, in these 2 groups. The red ones, which were the liberals, the ones which were inspired by the French Revolution, and the blue ones are the conservative, which were anchored on the feudal practices. And this conflict has produced lots of tension and violence in our territory. And we call it that the period of violence, bipartidist violence. And in Barichara, we experienced the division of the town in these 2 groups. And but fortunate, in the 70s, 80s, Barichara started to go in a very nice process that we enjoy at present, because Barichara has become a place of peace, away from war. We never experienced like the latest conflicts with the guerrilla. This is our town nowadays, which is very quiet, has a very beautiful landscape and very quiet, and a nice weather. And this is the place where we will welcome you. As you see, all the streets are paved with stones, and this architecture is made on traditional construction aesthetics, and the town protects a lot our town. The Ministry of Culture also protects the architecture which has been preserved, and which is one of the prides of our town. The streets, the houses are preserved. We have a big conflict in which CESI is working. As you see, there are plots of deforestation, which are the result of extensive monoculture, which have put an end to the forest. So we are fighting against desertification and trying to recover the sources of water and reforesting our landscape. There are very valuable people working in that purpose. Well, for the moment, it's everything I would like to share with you, and thank you.
Thank you so much, Oscar, muchas gracias por traer un poco de Barichara para
Thank you,
nosotros.
Oscar, for taking something of Barichara and share it with us. It's a marvelous scenery. I would like
check in, or would you like to anything? Yes. So what we would like to actually promote that, and I think this is part of our conversation. I'm gonna ask one of the things that we are making an intention as co-facilitators and also of organizers of this whole journey. Let me explain why is all this idea coming from. It's not all funded yet, but we truly believe that if we work hard together and everything that we've been doing as a community here, a Prosocial and TWCF community, we can actually go after. And why this is all coming up along, and why are we talking about all this, and why Oscar actually brought up this idea. One of the things that we had is we are going through our journey with the heart, and then Marcelo is going to open up and talk a little bit more about that right after I have this conversation, just to have this guideline. And one day when I was reading and one of the research of TWCF, they opened up and shared. Let me see if I can open up the proper one. Can you see my TWC John Templeton Foundation page? Yes. It says that Planet Zoom, how important is meeting face-to-face when it comes to network, family ties, and love, which is a lot of what we've been talking and working all together in this session and all this experience. And they say that the wealth of studies, how a study shall show we are hardwired to be social, to survive and thrive physically and mentally. And one of the things that is really important is actually everything that we are doing, it's really important, but we need to really deep on connection and love to have this face-to-face and see eye to eye, to replicate all these movements and moments in our journey. So when face-to-face really matters, they said all this, I can share that after, unfortunately it's all in English, but I think you can type in and have that translated. We need to do that to really strengthen our social bonds. So even though we're having very powerful relationship and all this project was meant to be online, we truly believe that if we do design an experience where we can be together face to face, we can put our efforts even stronger into our connection, our projects, and how our community base can be enhanced. This one we haven't yet find and raise all the money, but all at the same time, we're working all together to understand how much it is. And we're working with extra funders and donators that might be donors that could also support our journey. But this is going to be a collective and a group challenge that is not just for the facilitators, our Prosocial or TWCF. It won't be that. It's something that we are working out together to see how we can actually go after the funds and understand if this is important, how we're going to be and make that happen. And where is going to be this place? So the suggestion, since we have two organizations from Barichara of Colombia, and also they have a lot of prosociality already in place. It's one of the main projects that is already happening that in the grassroots level, a community level, in an ecosystem level, in the same territory. So that would be a chance for us to go, not just to offer and get to know each other, but at the same time to get in contact with the Prosocial project that is being happening for a longer time, and seeing the regeneration that is being the outcome of that type of program. So that's why we've been choosing that. And at the same time, that's why Oscar came and invited us to get to know a little bit more about the country, the space, the area, which we are envisioning to see that's going to be a possibility for us to meet in the second semester. So this is something that we would like to bring. this is a group effort because we're working on together how we can actually raise this money and make as more available and possible to get access and to go. I know, Adrian, I was looking for the price tickets from Cameroon. I need to double check and ask your help, because we need to have an idea how much money actually we need to raise at this moment, because this is not part of this whole project of TWCF. So this is an extra effort that we're putting together in a way that we can enhance our quality, our relationship, and the quality of our relationship for next level of collaboration, cooperation as an ecosystem that goes beyond. Okay. So this is something that I would like to share. That's why, and this is one of the talks we might have today. And I would like to pass to Marcelo to give an overview of this project, but not just the Barichara one, but the general overview, where we are and where we are going to. So we can all have an idea what type of experiences, activities that is happening before we start, right after we can present Collapso. Is it okay, Marcelo?
Yes, I can show you something that I've been working today, trying to understand the whole journey since last year and how we could recognize ourselves now and the next steps we want to do it together. Eu vou falar em português agora, tudo bem?
So now I'm going to speak Portuguese, okay? And I am going to share the screen with you. Let me just see. Oh, Mari's here. Welcome, Mari. Marilene. Welcome. Good evening. I was running so much, but I've just gotten here. It's wonderful to see you here. Okay, so I'm going to bring an overview of the project since last year. And it might be a bit repetitive, but it's always interesting for us to look at it now after a certain while, you know, where we were and the models that have guided us and what seems to be happening now that might inspire us to continue and also move on, you know? Thinking about the great purpose that we had in the project, that we still have, that has to do with the cultural revolution of Latin America. So this process of investment of ours around a cultural evolution that's possible, it was thought about. And this thinking was brought last year in a moment, and I'm going to share with you right now so that we can look at it together, okay? So this material that I'm sharing with you, part of it is in English. Actually, it might be all in English because I'm still preparing that to show that to David. So I apologize that it is in English, but I'll try to bring you the main elements so that we remember that in 2022, that was a year in which we initially had the organizations in a process of finding what actually united us. And that began with a process that was called collaborative sense-making. And as many things that we have been through in this process in Latin America, among the organizations and among ourselves, it always takes us to the purpose, to what matters to us, to what brings us closer and makes us act collectively in a collaborative manner. And this process was brought by the knowledge and wisdom of Robert Stiles, built upon processes that were multi-actor processes that had to do with a lot of complexity. And Robert worked with this methodology with countries in Asia and in the Oceania, dealing with issues that alone, it would be impossible to deal with. And so they were built in-person processes. And for the first time, we had this done online last year. So he had a very beautiful challenge with us, of bringing this multi-actor process, thinking about a complex issue in an online way. And so we've been through a path that not everybody was able to experience in the beginning, but it is based on a few cycles that have to do with self-development and also an outline of what we consider critical factors and something that we acknowledge as being our pain and our challenge as an organization. And so when we map all of this together, we can identify what's common to all of us. And this mapping of what is common to us can later serve to make us advance in what we think is our common point toward a positive change. So here on this map that was done last year, we had issues that were raised that were very important and that touch deeply personal issues of ours, personal and collective issues. And along the year, I'm not going to go into too many details, but all of that led us to a view of the future and also of the ways Prosocial offers us to think about a collaborative governance based on Elinor Ostrom's principles, which are the design principles that help us, again, ask ourselves what is possible to do together? What can we build together? And how can we qualify the opportunities that come along based on the moment in which we acknowledge ourselves as organizations and as a group of organizations, and that in a pro-social it's framed as something multi-level, and then you begin something with groups, then groups with groups, and then groups of groups of groups. And so it's possible for us to envision a collective action that leads us to cycles of learning. And then I'm already on cycle 7 here in the end. And so that all showed a path that was very much enriched by the participative video series. Many of us had the opportunity to participate in that. And along the year, last year, we were reminded of the importance of knowing how to record what we live in a way of stories that connect us to what happens, but especially that have to do with the possibility for change after we acknowledge ourselves. So when we concluded the year, we were able to celebrate the process that we experienced online, but that also enabled us to move to this next step, which is cycle number 2. So now that we already have an understanding of how we can build a common collaborative process, what else can we do? And how can we build something in order to have autonomy and empowerment regarding what was taught to us? And maybe that's an essential issue for 2023. Since the beginning, it's a continuity of that process. But in terms of asking ourselves again, what are the issues that matter? And what are the causes that connect us? And many of these causes, we try to come up with clusters or common spaces for them. So they were all based on this map, education, social change, youth, indigenous communities, environment and biodiversity issues, politics, policies, and that led us to a process of 3 big clusters: environment conservation, education, and social change. And I'd just like to bring to you this vision. Maybe we can always remember this choice of going deeper. You know, this group can go deep with the same group. So how can we together keep on acting and reformulating what we had last year? And this base, this foundation of work that we have, it led us to the heart, which is what we call this deep connection with the heart, because it is very much based on what is our internal, our inner consciousness. And that also takes us to acknowledge that reality, well, part of it is not clear to us as we think it is. So this combination of my inner process, it's a reality that I cannot define alone. And many times it seems that I'm, in the dark, because what actually matters to Latin America? What matters to me? What matters to my organization? That allowed us to work in a different way this year, in a way that at a certain moment led us to deconstruct everything. And this is also very interesting, something that happened this year. It's a possibility of looking at ourselves with courage to who we are and take up our autonomy and identity as Latin America. So this process began with the structure that we have here with regular meetings, and we have done that, regular meetings in the first semester with interviews in the beginning and then interviews at the end. And that's going to help us look at the change that's happening. But actually, what seems to be happening now is not exactly what's here. Here we have a structure that has guided us. And in a certain way, it reproduces what Robert brought to us last year. But what actually came out of it? What did we live and why does it seem different now? Well, at a certain point in this year, we asked ourselves, well, what is our strength as Latin America? And what is this process of power that we have here? And in a certain moment, we took it upon ourselves to think and say, okay, we are the facilitators, we're going to bring this change about. And as we incorporate this facilitation process and bring this deep connection with the humankind and with answers at the level of the heart, we built the so-called heart connection game. And we've played this game very carefully and sometimes with like a double vision, because it looks at results and the project and what we're able to show that's very objective in terms of the change that we want to bring about in Latin America in different levels, but also there's this possibility of incorporated knowledge, wisdom, and tools in several levels. And here I brought a few depictions of what we've been doing lately. And I thought this was very beautiful, this recollection that I did today, because it reminds me of how this production that we created together, it is away from what we had last year, and that it is deeply connected to the heart in an expression of Latin America that's very much its own expression. And the language that we've been bringing in terms of the baskets, first on an individual level, each and every one of us with our wisdom that's interconnected, and how it creates this possibility of talking as organizations and bringing everything to the next level, to the next step. And this next step is depicted here based on a central question. How can we support each other? How can we support each other? Knowing that we have a deep commitment with a self-sustainable ecosystem that is prosocial in Latin America. So maybe we still don't have a full answer to this question, but we have a few indicators of how we can answer it. And this has been done, I think, by each and every one of us very carefully. It has to do with our own expression as facilitators, our development as facilitators, one supporting the other, and also learning process, everyone in his or her own context, sharing things here in terms of what we are and what we strive to be, and also in the means of recording things in the participatory videos, and also in the possibility of us helping each other. So there's another group supported by Robert and myself, which is Helen, Terry, and Gail's group. And they have their own reality and challenges in environmental conservation. So this map leads us to a very curious place. Where will we go from now on, knowing that we have this protagonist role? We have a very much local outlook, but also a broad outlook in terms of Latin America. And what are we invited to do? And here we have a map that we're still drawing, we're still coming up with, thinking about what would be this journey with the heart in this 2023-2024 period. This is just a rough draft. And it also brings what drew Michelle's attention in terms of what she talked about from Templeton, the importance of being together in person, connected, and how can this activate us? And that's where we have this initiative thinking about Barichara, and then I labeled that as Prosocial Festival. It's an opportunity for us to build things but maybe we can also heal things from Latin America in several levels, individually and collectively. Our stories of healing, but also bringing our traumas in many levels. And they can have many origins, and there can be many ways of talking about this. But it seems that this is impregnated in the way in which we receive power from others, and how can this power sometimes be a talk about us. And this is an invitation for us to think about the next few steps and thinking about notes that I had and also things that we've noticed together. It could be an important field for us to work together, this healing stories, and also trying to look for a research path that has to do with participatory methods, action research, of maybe recording the journeys in our communities and bringing all of that in formats that, you research people can go away from a traditional method of doing that and think about nonverbal ways, forms of language that are less objectivist and more subjectivists. Here, I think we have a very interesting terrain for talk. Here it's just a draft, but there's a question that I think is very nice and powerful for us to think about. What are the higher order connections in other levels that can arise from these connections that we have now in Latin America? Because I believe that what we're doing is just the beginning. So what else? What other connections in new levels can we promote based on our experience? And I also leave you with this phrase that makes a lot of sense to me. Of us really to be able to overcome the divide for us to transcend. So how can we transcend what divides us? I think that's also a way of acknowledging our particularities, but also the possibility of an union around what's most powerful to us. So I think that's what I wanted to share. Michele, I think, the last few thoughts that I had, it's a lot of information there. This is, raw material that is going to try to translate what we've been experiencing in our process since last year. I don't know if you would like to open for conversation now, Michele. I'm going to stop sharing, Oscar, so that it is not too heavy.
Thank you, Marcelo, for the overview. I think there is many perspectives that can be included in our conversation, but much appreciation. I think now I will open the round very for us. What comes to my mind that it's not possible to not be said that I would like to share after this presentation with Marcelo? Go ahead, Oscar.
Bueno, muchas gracias por todo ese viaje tan profundo.
Thank you very much for that journey, very profound towards our organizational, just trying to recover so much work that has been done. I would like to know if there is something in written that we can read to deepen that knowledge, because we were talking about that in our meeting yesterday. You have make a summary of this part of this learning journey, which I feel I'm part of it, but only partially. So I would like to read and understand a bit more of what have been shared. And thank you very much for these very precise conclusions that you have shared with us.
It will be done, Oscar, soon. We still don't have that, but part of it is done. It's there. And part is described by Robert, but there's another part that I think is very much our own from this year. And it's not yet described. I think this is a wonderful invitation that you're making. And maybe we can do that together. We can open a Google Docs and we can do that together. I can begin. And I believe there are several hands that can make this alive in an initial structure. What would we like to say in text about this, right? Thank you.
Oscar, there's a lot of materials that I'm not sure, like Marcelo is saying, the outcomes of this year, this is what we're doing as co-facilitators. So for example, when we have the designs, when we have the individual videos, our collective video, this is part of the outcomes of this year. But if you would like to know more of the content of the tools, the methodologies of what is Prosocial, outcomes of the first year, we have everything in the Google Drive in our YouTube channel. Anything that you need, I'll be able to share with all of you. If you don't have yet the access, please let me know. I'm trying to open up just to make sure everybody has the availability to access. But from last year, a lot of the tools, you have the videos for the participatory video. The most of you, Adrian, Ceci, Oscar were, also Mari and Mateus. But from the Marine Journey, that we had people, for example, Terry, we had invited Joe Brewer, representing Earth Regenerators. We had Josepha, and we had us. This is our gap from last year, that we had people separate in different journeys, but they were all combined. That's why Marcelo had an overview now that you could have all the journeys all together. But if you do like to have the access, and I think this is really important as well, because it's a very good opportunity to take a look of the content, the outcomes and everything. Let me just share, because I think this is valuable as well. So if you have, and we have that in our link in our WhatsApp group. So from last year, if you go to that website, you can have the 3 colors. It's considered green, it's in Portuguese, yellow, it's in Spanish, blue, it's in English. So everything that we have in our meetings, it's being uploaded from this year and last year. So this is Ecosystem Dialogue from 2023. But we have all the journey from 2022, cycle 9, the celebration cycle 8, all the cycle 7.6, for example, the aprendizaje activo. We have everything that we had from last year that Marcelo had designed. For example, all those 3, the journey, the workflow that we had just mentioned, this one. It's on this YouTube channel. And any of the documents that you might need to support, to read, to take a look, it's in the Google Drive. So if you go to your WhatsApp, by the time you go, you can see in the description. Can you see my WhatsApp page? Yes? Okay. If you want to take a look on the YouTube, you have here. So you have all the videos, all recordings from our main journey, of 2023. Our ecosystem dialogue, our co-facilitators meeting that we have with Ceci, Oscar, Mateus, Mari, it's in a different space. But everything that is open in our formal Wednesday meetings that we have in the 3 languages, it's here. Documents that you might like to take a look, you can go to this link, which is the Dropbox one. Let me see if it opens. And then you can see all the documents that you might have from last year for the participatory videos, self-development, system analysis, trend analysis. And by the time you open up, you have that all the canvases here, and they have translated in the same one in Portuguese, Spanish, and English. So anything you might need. Anything that you would like to know about our mirror board is also in this place here. So if you would like to take a look on the final reports of last year, anything from the journey that we had until now, you can take and have the access over there. If you would like to see the material that we've been developing this year, it's everything that we're doing throughout our journey now. So for example, the personal videos, our collective videos, how we are co-creating this story of this year. So when Marcelo says that we are doing something different, we are going deeper in a situation of the journey from last year that we had kind of frameworks, documents. So this year we're actually feeling the connection. What is the human connection? What makes us feel that we want to do something together? What is our main purpose as a collective? How we can cross the boundaries of our own organizations and actually add value to our relationship that comes on this way. So this year we're going deeper. And then this is the situation when he says there is a little way. We're not doing paperwork where we can fill up sheets and, okay, let's see the opportunities, right, left, cross, and all the square boxes and documents. We're actually feeling the real connection and doing what makes sense to us. So making sense to us, it's not just promoting what is important to each of us, getting to know us better and deeper, but also how we can share and add value to anything that we can do together in a way that we can enhance what this community is having as a purpose in your individual and organization, and also our collective and ecosystem group. I know we have a lot of Latin American, right, Adrian, but don't feel outside of the Latin American context, because I know you feel like we are together in the same continent because just the ocean separated us. But the value of humankind and the challenges that we have are very close. So it's really important for us also to honor your presence together with us. But when we talk about Latin America, it's just because in a general perspective, when we started, the Templeton Foundation actually put the efforts in Latin America as the project. But Terry said she really wanted you to come. And then Robert said yes, right? We're going to face the opportunity to have someone from Cameroon also together with us, because the challenges and the main factors that Marcelo had talked in the beginning, they're very common, some of them, right? Because of the whole story and the context that we are living on. Did I answer your question, Oscar?
Sí, gracias. No, es que
Yes, thank you. There is a lot of theory that I would like to know deeper. So that's why I wanted to know. I was asking if there is one single document to get to know everything, if it was a kind of a summary of everything. I wanted to know if there was a master document, but now I understand better. Thank you, Michelle.
Só complementando, Oscar, o Robert escreveu.
Just to add to it, Oscar, Robert wrote, and I think it's also there in the Dropbox. He described tests step by step in a very interesting text, very clear text of each step. So there's a document there in these files that describes all of it in a very succinct manner, step by step, how the process took place. We haven't translated what we did this year in the same format that he did. Yes, that's the text. That's the one that Michelle is sharing. And it describes cycle by cycle. It creates an introduction, and then it shows the application of the matrix of Prosocial here. And these are very carefully written texts. They're very inspiring. And actually, Robert's intention was to publish a book, and this is part of the book, which he calls, I don't remember the name exactly, but I think it's field book or something, like a handbook, so that this can be shared with more people, you know, this experience.
Que nosotros podemos traer nuestros cases para.
Thank you, because we are going to be able to bring our own cases to add to this recopilation with the experience of this year as part of our experience. There is another opportunity. We haven't talked yet about that, but I believe this is going to be the foundation to share what we are doing. Also, the workshop that we have been talking with the co-facilitators, there are so many opportunities. There are so many things that are possible to be made, but we have to do it step by step. But we have this opportunity as well. It's not yet started, but it's there as a possibility with all of us as a collective, included Adrian, of course, with our cases in our projects that can be added to this content as well.
Adrian, I'd like to reinforce what Michele said and say that, yeah, when we talk about Latin America, many times it gives the impression that it is restricted and limited to Latin America, but it's just a way for us to create a line, you know, like a border for a project whose funding was directed to Latin America. But I honor your presence with us so much because it's been very enriching to have you with us, for you to tell us of your experience and how we can think about bringing all of that in our next few steps in a format and in a language that is not just limited to Latin America. So thank you very much for your presence with us.
Or can we go to the basket? Yes. Ok. Matheus, gostaria de fazer, ou a gente pode
Matheus, would you like to do that? Well, actually, we're going to do the presentation of Colapso now. So would you like to bring again the reflection of the baskets for everyone? Matthews? Hi, sorry. I just came back. I went to the restroom. Anyway, sorry. What was it? Would you give the instructions so that we can go to the baskets? And then Marcelo is going to present Collapsol, right? Yeah, sure. Right, so today we're going to have the presentation, as Michele said, and Marcelo also said that. We're going to have Collapsol. We had also a presentation that Marcelo just presented. I think Marcelo also fulfilled that very well. So we have 10 minutes for the presentation. And I think we can have even a little bit more time if you need today. I don't know what you think about it. And then we are going to fill the baskets that Michele just showed so that we can offer our perspectives and comment on things and talk about possibilities of cooperation, because it's a project that, from what I understood from Collabsol, it's a project that is within this bigger project and also in the facilitation, right? So I think that's kind of that. I don't know if Michele can share the link for the baskets, please. I think we can use this presentation and then we can discuss so that we can have the baskets, right? I don't know if you have any questions, if you have any comments to make, something that you would like to say as well. It's the same idea of the last two presentations. Right? So wonderful presentation to you, Marcelo and Michele. Thank you. And I'm also going to invite Michele to co-present with me because Collab Soul was initiated by me and her in 2014. So I'd say that, we're almost 10 years on the road. And for many years, initially, we called it a movement. And it was a movement that was deeply connected to what brought us together as a couple as well. So Collab Soul, in a certain way, is an expression of who we are as individuals, Michele and I, and also as a couple. So sometimes it's complicated even to speak about it, to speak about Collapsol, because it means speaking of ourselves. And maybe the main thing that united us as a couple is that we wanted to go beyond the romantic love. We wanted to go beyond this family love and beyond the conventions of a regular couple. And we wanted to create a difference that would be broader and bigger, something beyond ourselves, and this deep connection with the possibility of acting as a couple is what made us name Collapsol in 2014. And there was this trip that we created together, Michele and I, and that was a trip to Asia, in which we had a sabbatical for 4 months. And to design this trip that we took, we ended up getting our interests together, my very strong interest on understanding collaborative processes, in addition to the innovative companies, and exploring collaboration that happened also in the co-working and spaces that we call Fab Labs, or spaces for creativity in another culture. And Michele, at that moment, she was very much interested in exploring other forms of knowledge and self-consciousness, because she had already done that sabbatical year, 2 years actually, of sabbatical period. So when the opportunity came for us to travel together for a few months, we asked ourselves, okay, but why travel then? How are we going to come back thinking about what we learned and the privilege that we had to access things? because before we travel, we can already think about these things. We can already share the results of this trip. So in a certain way, we designed this trip together, thinking about the sabbatical trip, thinking about the results that would be generated from the trip. And at the time, they were more academic results to produce an article about collaboration in innovative environments, not only in companies, and also sharing everything that we could learn together. Getting people together to talk about what we learned and sharing our own experience as a couple, thinking about this trip together. So before we traveled, we had this perspective. Let me just pass the floor to her. Thank you. Yes, I think I'm just going to speak Portuguese now so that I can also honor that. Since the beginning, when we think about the society, I think this is an important point for us to say, more than all of this story that Marcelo said of how this happened and why it happened. There are systemic pains in the planet, and we didn't know how to deal with it. How can we support a new condition for the planet based on an integration and a wholeness on the level of the individual in our relationship and with the organizations and for the society? It's very easy to say that things are not working out and to say that there are a lot of indicators that show us this disconnection of human beings with themselves, with each other, and with the planet. So many things that we saw in terms of pain and increased suicide on the youth and as a whole. And Brazil is wins in terms of burnout and anxiety by the World Labor Organization, and seeing people getting sick in terms of human relations within their own spaces of life, in the organizations, in the society, and more than anything else, looking at the consequences that were happening in our planet, the impact, the higher amount of exploration, either of the forests or of human beings, children, the way we look at the government, so polarized. So we had a lot of systemic pains that we saw. And as a couple, it would be very small to only think about solutions for ourselves. So Collapsol was born out of a very strong process that we would like to propose new solutions to the world, solutions that could bring human conditions that were more and more alive, and that could also bring an impact at the end in the way in which we could look at the world where we would like to live. So everything that we do in Collapsol, it has to do with self-consciousness for the collective. Because if you want to do something, it's no use for us to start doing things if there's not the start based on our essence. We can't just do things as they were done before. So we need to co-create and innovate with new solutions, thinking about what we're doing. And there's no way to do that alone, because if we want to innovate and if we want to do something new, we need to build this in a collaborative manner. So when we thought about all of these structures, where are the spaces where we can make things a reality, practical and pragmatical issues that are more and more with human beings as integrated, working together for something that is going to benefit more than the people who are involved. It's going to be a legacy that's going to be for the entire society. So Collapsol left a systemic individual pain that was collective as well, and generated after that a better condition for us to start creating new possibilities of living together. I don't know, Marcelo, do you have slides? Yeah. Can I take a look? Right. So from this pain, that's where we came to be here. So how did we get to Prosocial? From a systemic pain at the pandemic, we saw that there was a lot of contribution and things happening in Brazil, and we were supporting a lot of people and organizations in situations of vulnerability in Brazil as a whole. It was a big volume of needs and activities. And at this point, we saw that there was a world organization that was doing work based on a practice, on a case that they had in Africa after the Ebola virus. Prosocial with Elinor Ostrom was created with the clarity of these collaborative principles, the core design principles that we're talking about. of an observation of how in Africa the whole continent was able to be recomposed, thinking about small groups that could be reestablished after a catastrophe and this big collective trauma. And from there, after the pandemic, we started to see a lot of affinity in the processes. And we thought, we need to bring this to Brazil. We need to bring drops of hope for the organizations and for the spaces where we are, so that we can see if we can reestablish ourselves as humankind and as a society. This was the link when we began to contact Prosocial world. How could we reestablish practices and possibilities for us to rebuild our country after the Ebola? And so many things happened from there. But if we could speak a little bit of what we're doing, right, Marcelo? Let me see. Let me share this space so that we can mention very briefly what we're doing today. Thank you, Michele. I'm going to share the slides with you. But before that, I'd just like to locate this start of Collapsol and key content, things that were happening and are still happening, wisdom that you have probably been connected with, or maybe you're close to that, and you're going to come closer to that. Wisdom coming from Otto Schammer from MIT that bring a paradigm of a worldview that's called a U theory, working on the idea of disconnection and reconnection, and this disconnection in several levels, on the individual, on the society, and this disconnection also led to other wisdoms coming more or less at the same time in the form of solutions. So how can I work on this disconnection? It's a more recent discourse that has to do with regeneration of the planet, regeneration of communities. And at this time, we were very much in touch with the art of hosting, which is a world movement that has this basis of facilitation that we work with, and that also accesses a lot of other wisdoms that connect us even to mediation of conflicts. And this conflict mediation has a lot to do with complex issues of the society, and that alone we cannot do things. So this basis of work that we came to conduct over the years, that was by means of accessing these other wisdoms, made us say, when we found Prosocial, oh, this is our home. That's where we can continue to learn and nourish what we see as a reality. So that was in 2020, and then we had already left the state of movement and transformed it into an ecosystem. So I'm going to share with you a few slides. So it begins with this sentence talking about transformation with humanity. And it seems absurd to talk about this, right? As if, transformation could be without humanity. But a lot of what we say, many times it's obvious. It's the obvious that we need to do things with humanity. And in a certain way, it comes very strong with the possibility of regenerating. Regenerating was what was destroyed, what was lost, what is hidden, and what's genuinely human that seems to have been lost. So this image brings a bit of our belief of what we have done over the years, which is, all of these birds flying, and that has different meanings for different people. I try to express that in a way in which Michele and I, we are in the middle of this, and many times we are seen as those who begin things as well. And maybe we have there a lot of the dilemmas that we see as this regeneration and this transformation that the world needs to go through, which is how can we act collectively, being between, one of them, and also bringing our individual strength for those who make a difference and those who allow movements to begin. Of course, that's also a paradox, but we tend to see ourselves in this way, and composing in this collective flight Many times there's no order that's coordinated. We can even say sometimes it's chaotic, but it has a logic. It has a sense, a higher sense that makes these movements happen. And I'm going to bring to you an example of what we've been doing, and it has a lot of relationship with this work that we're doing at Prosocial. And last year, we had a work in Mexico in which we worked with Mexican leaders in the Monterrey region, helping these leaders to acknowledge something that could be common for them. And a lot of the work that we do can be identified in that way, in our search for something that's not common, something that works as a common understanding of a challenge. And among the possible results that we raised, we had this one, which is a very human world challenge that has to do with family violence, and how when you reduce family violence, we're able to have healthier relationships. So this was a theme of a workshop that was very much based on a lot of what we bring today in our own environment of Latin America Prosocial, which is the conviction that we have of this connection with the heart, the learnings that we had in terms of understanding these multi-level environments, and also the different challenges that we had and different games that we had. Sometimes a more cognitive game, sometimes a game that we can say it's a more subtle game of the art, of the spirit, and of the soul, and also the game of the documents and of the results. And sometimes they justify why you have a certain investment in projects. And then there's another slide that I think you know, which is the effort that we have to come up with groups to think about what unites us, what's the meaning of reality. So a lot of the work that we do in Collabsol is a contextual work of thinking about the same way in which we did before, in visions for the future, projections of what we can do together, and what helps us think about a complex reality and how we can come up with transformations. I also have here the model that we applied in Mexico, which is very similar to what we did here in Prosocial, Latin America. And the difference is that based on a common challenge, we tried to work on the prosocial instruments. So we worked with psychological flexibility. We also worked on the principles of Elinor Ostrom as information. And then we wanted each participant to look at their own context and ask themselves, how can this challenge be worked and dealt with in each environment? So as is not too vague, I can say that leaders of the Mexican public sector of this region in Monterrey, people who have leaders in certain places, they could work on ways to deal with this family violence and how to promote healthy relationships. Here we also have an example of this process. It brings a lot of what we saw last year in Prosocial, which is a process to define a strategy and have an analysis of actors and look at trends and ask what are the capacities and opportunities that we see based on this mapping. And now I'm going to give you another example, the work that we do at Collabsol. It's a project that's collaborative that we did based on what would be what we call it Collabsol. What are the new ways of doing things and being that we can promote in the world? If we were to create an event, if we were to create something, how would it be called? How could it bring something new and different? for the transformation. And so we worked in a year by interviewing people and bringing a group that was very close on a weekly basis, asking ourselves, what is the space that we can offer to the world? And from there, we had this project. It's called Who Takes Care of Whom? So who takes care of whom, and who cures, and who takes care of causes, and who takes care of who, of the one who's taking care. And this is a wordplay, but it works on issues that we regard as delicate and systemic, and things that I'm going to bring some of them here. They have to do with questions like, how can we expand our horizons and think about decolonization in a broader sense in terms of Brazil and Latin America? How can we include different knowledges and bring this interchange of knowledge? How can we honor different knowledges and create something new? And a third field, it's a field of the conditions of the situation of heteronormativity, and how can we bring and transform the way in which we transform things? How can we break with situations that have to do with pain and trauma? So we thought those things were important to bring this environment of causes, cures, and care. And it can be a movement, it can be a meeting, it can be a festival. We have still not made it concrete, but a lot of collabs and things have to do with conceptions, big visions, conceptual visions that we, many of them we put to the world, and others we offer. So this project is still not there, but it also has to do with forms of dialogue that we came up with during the years, and we call them we call them three-person dialogue. Those are deep connections distributed among groups of three people, and they build this possibility of transformation. So we can think about this as an event with these meetings of three people, and also festivals and many forms of connection that have to do with what we believe is disconnection. So disconnection to causes, disconnection to those who take care of these causes, disconnection to this healing process. I'm going to cite a third example, things that we have done. This project that's called Collab Store, it has already a different part here. It is very much based on the possibility of getting entrepreneurs together from creative economy and working with them in participative manner, so that allows them to make autonomous decisions and make them together, and also thinking about this self-knowledge and the release of protagonism, and all of this together with the benefits of doing things together, like creating a store together. It's a collaborative store, really. And what happens, thinking about, selling products, of course, that are produced by them, but also creating benefits based on these sales. So benefits would be donating 10% of everything that's generated in sales for social processes. We've done that for 3 years. In the pandemic, we stopped doing that, and it's done inside an event in Brazil that's called Happiness Congress. It's a very big national congress that gathers thousands of people, in general of a more elite class in Brazil. And Collab Store is a way to have possibility of bringing a different message of how businesses can be and how entrepreneurs can act, and how can we create new realities based on collaborative processes. So here we have the structure. It's sociocratic that we use. when we get together, for example, 20 or 30 entrepreneurs to create this store together, because it works for only 2 days. So it is created from scratch, since the part of the project of the space itself, as if it were like a stand or a booth. But how can I finance it? How can I work on the communication? How can I work on the stock? Who's going to take care of the reception and the sales? And so these decision making processes done in a collaborative way, they are cultivated by us for weeks before we open the store. We have meetings and we have these self-knowledge processes, and also expansion of the processes of how to work with other people in this way. And I'm going to show you a video so that you can have an idea of how things happen, how this store comes about. I am going to find it in just a moment. Right, so I'm going to share. Let me see. Let me see where we are. Just a minute. Right.
Marcelo, não tá aparecendo.
Pessoal, nasceu de uma.
It's not
Marcelo,
sharing.
Não está aparecendo o
não está
vídeo?
No, it's
aparecendo.
not showing. The video is not showing. Just the sound.
Do Google, acho, do seu computador. Você quer que eu mostre o nosso manifesto?
Would you like me to show our manifest instead of the video? Yeah,
O vídeo do manifesto?
the video of the manifest.
A gente vai mudar um pouco. Seria no começo, mas acho que eu vou colocar
So,
agora no meio. Mas vamos lá. Vou colocar para vocês
let's change things up a bit.
um pouco do contexto do porquê que
We're going to
precisa
put this to you. It's a declaration that we have
Ele é simples, mas eu espero
because
que
it's
possa
simple,
trazer para vocês um pouquinho disso que a gente está falando.
but I hope it can show you what we're talking about, what we are about now. In a reconnection with itself, with others, with the planet. The co-responsibility for the new requires resources of humanity. That today are insufficient or even non-existent. We want to maximize the transformation that the world needs. By promoting a new lifestyle. That integrates collaboration, innovation, and happiness.
E a partir, né, de tudo isso, quando a gente
And
mostra
based on all of that, when we show all of these processes that we're having, sometimes it's so hard to explain.
There's so many ways that we can establish this new way of being, doing, and promoting things that makes meaning. That sometimes when we separate all these projects, thank you, Marcelo, for bringing all this, because it's very special. But by the time we don't understand why we are doing that, where did it come from? Any efforts that we're putting, especially in this project, is because we truly believe there's so many special things that comes from this part of the world together with Adrian, that it can be offered. It's a new way of being. It's a new way of promoting things. It's a new way of impacting. How we can put together our efforts together in a way that we can put in the impact outside. So when we work in Brazil, there's so many other projects that, thank you, Marcelo, for bringing part of them. Because we believe that the way we are doing, living as a society, as a community, and everything that we're putting out as an outcome, either it can be a service, either it can be an organization, either can be a project. Most of the time, that doesn't make any sense to anybody, or it makes sense to a very small portion of people, a very small portion of organizations, maybe, right? So anything that we do in Collabso today, it's also to how we can promote the reflection, a deep reflection of what needs to be changed. And all different processes, that is like the new different types of designs that can actually have an outcome to inspire and promote hope and promote something that is really possible to be doing it. Because most of the time we feel, oh, this project can impact, but it cannot be sustainable. Yes, we can be sustainable, but the way that we need to do is a little different. And we need to promote innovating, thinking differently, in a way that we can co-create and collaborate, in a way that we can put efforts together towards a common purpose. And at the same time, believing and understanding that the inner being, what promotes us to do everything we do, there is a guideline with happiness, with a deeper meaning of happiness, not a happy face, but happiness as a purpose of life. That combined with all this, we can promote the change and develop what is needed to the world. So I think mainly that's one of the most important things that connect us and what make us to move. And Marcelo gave us a little bit of some of the projects and suggestions in how we can promote that. But there's so many others, and then that I would like to share, but there is no time to share all of them. And that's why make us here, be here, and at the same time give all the best of our energy towards to something that is possible and can promote impact to more people that it's needed and what's needed. So I think this is a little bit about Collabso, I think. I'm really thankful with Marcelo because we didn't have the time to really see what it could be shared to all of you. So sorry for not sharing the video beforehand. But at the same time, I would like to post it so you can get just like a little bit more of what it is.
Yeah, thanks, Michelle. We work in different dimensions. Also with the corporate life, helping leaders and teams to develop them in different strategies, and also in team building. We help them to innovate. We help them to have sort of diagnosis of levels of happiness, collaboration, and so on. But when we look at what we've been doing in Prosocial, it's much more. It's beyond just corporations. So this is about this regeneration and how we can promote that through this multi-level collaboration aspects that goes beyond just one aspect of success. So we've been working also trying to understand the differences and the needs that sometimes we talk to some audiences that could be like, you are crazy, I cannot understand what you are talking. And sometimes it's difficult to have this feeling of how we could serve to others. I think this is something that we've been doing over the years, trying to have this proper view of how we could contribute in different environments in the way we could benefit people and organizations. So this is quite tricky because sometimes we need to talk in a different language to help people and organizations, and using some sort of language we could sometimes to be apart from what we believe. So this is very, very difficult to achieve all the time. But what we try to do is to be very connected with our purpose and work with things that actually matter for us. And for us, Prosocial is so connected in what we believe it's our role as ecosystem. So I think we could talk a lot in different aspects. I brought some examples for you, like this previous one about Collab Store. It's mainly about entrepreneurship and how we could help entrepreneurs to open up to collaboration, and how they could work in higher order, not just about selling things, but also trying to put meaning for what they are doing and inspire others. So just one example, okay? So I'd like to hear you. What's maybe it's your impression about this small presentation of Collapso?
Obrigado, Marcelo. Obrigado, Michele, pela
Thank you,
apresentação.
Marcelo. Thank you, Michele, for your presentation. I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed your project. I didn't know all of the strategies behind it, and I even put that on Miro. I was adding a few comments, and I'm just writing a question on the chat. But I think I'm going to open the floor for everyone to say things and to make comments and type things,
As percepções e feedbacks também, né?
right?
E a gente pode preencher tudo isso.
And then we can put all of that on Miro as well
Assim, natural, né? Beleza?
by doing this more natural process. Would anybody like to say something? Oh, Adrian and Ceci, who would like to go first? I didn't see who raised the hand first. Adrian? Okay, go ahead, Adrian. Thank you, Ceci.
Okay. Thank you, Mateus. Thank you very much, Marcelo and Michelle, for the wonderful presentation. I think the flow of everything, what Collapso is all about, it's very interesting. And I was very, very interested because I feel from what you explained, it has a lot to do with your mental health, how you feel at a given point in time. And it has to do with your personality, how you carry out your activities and everything. I was particularly touched by when you talk about family violence. I would like to know, you talked about working with government officials, working with groups in terms of the Collapse Store. Now, when you talk about family violence, do you just do like maybe education or sensitization, or people contact you maybe for maybe healing, or talk about healing cause and care and everything you talked about, or you just do like education, people to contact you, maybe one-on-one talking or something like, how can I call it, like counseling or something like that? So how does like the area of family violence, like how I would like to talk about a little bit, maybe a minute or something, or some few seconds again about it. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Adrian. I'm not sure if I'm going to have the proper answer, because on that project, actually, when we talk about that violence in the families, since we were talking with the public sector, they had a recommendation to actually promote as a political policy to the province to have a specific project to talk with men about violence in the families. So on that situation, they had a group of people to really work on that and have a policy to be established, because generally you have support for the one who got violated. So they have many organizations, psychologists, they have projects with that, in which they give the support for the the people who were violated. But at the same time, they could see from the project that and the journey that we took, that was something very important was missing. That actually was to have a public policy to take care in open spaces, to talk with men who actually promotes the violence, not just with the women or with the family, who actually is promoting that. So that was something that they had an idea and how they could do that opposite, like the other way, not opposite, but seeing from different perspectives what actually was causing on that situation. When we talk about mentorship and coaching, advising, healing process, we have that in like team building and projects that is different, not specific on that one. But for example, when you have mentorship with leaders, it doesn't matter, it can be big companies or small family groups or NGO projects, any of them. And unfortunately in Brazil, we have a high percentage of people who got violated when they were younger, or even in their young or teen age. So most of the leaders today, when we go deeper into their projects as a mentor and coach, we do have processes that can help them to face the trauma individually and how they can overcome to have the support and assistance and work as a better leader. I'm not sure if I'm answering your question. We are not really healers, like in the most traditional way, but we can say that yes, we do like to work with deep trauma, collective trauma, individual trauma, in a way that those people can be, or those organizations can be, a different example of this in the organization, in the society. So for example, if you need to have a good leader to be in their best space, to promote good changes, give good supports to something that they need and they have the impact, they need to be in a better space. Do we coach and heal all the leaders that comes? Usually not. Usually we focus on the leaders that we know that can promote the change we want to see in the world. For those ones, yes, we would like to give the time and support and assistance that is needed. And not just me and Marcelo, we have a group of a team as an ecosystem that can help and assist us as well. Here in this project, it's me and Marcelo, especially from Prosocial. But we promoted and we're having like Mari in her project. We have Marli, the professor from Univille, who's also coming with this mindset of how we can put our efforts together to do something that is needed in our country, which is to remain and keep the indigenous people in their right land and have their voices to be heard in many different spaces. So this is another project that is not just her. We have also people from the village from Amazon forest. It's another project. How we can promote their self-independence in a way that they can have their own school, promote their own culture, their own language, and at the same time remain with this culture in a safe position, where they all around, they have the destruction, they have all those things that is happening in our country. So this is a different project, but it's also a different way of talking, this coaching, mentorship, and developing the program and planning, how to impact. Was that answered? Thank you for the question. It's always good because I never had that type of question, but it gave me a new outcome. Ceci?
Yo tenía también la misma pregunta, ya, pues una pregunta parecida, va por ahí, pero bueno.
I had a similar question, but you already answered. I have another question. When you talk about Prosocial, I would like, how do you talk about the economy? If you talk about circular economy, or...
Bueno, es una buena idea, sí, podría ser. Pero la intención es que
the intention that we have, for example, in the case of Collab Store, is how to learn a practice of collaboration based on the self-discovery. But what you suggest will be a good idea for this year to work with the circular economy. This year, we could make a call to work with people who would like to work on that concept. Some of the producers which work with us work with that concept of the circular economy. But this festival that we were talking about, that is once a year, it's very inclusive. And in this context, we have one-to-one dialogues. We don't have the space to talk collectively. So the opportunity is to take a systemic view for us, it's important to scale up the perspective of this people who is working in those contexts. And for example, when we think about acquiring things, buying things, and for example, when the handworks are sold, for example, in the indigenous communities, there is no community, there is no consciousness of what that work represents. We don't have only the intention to work collaborative, but also to develop the personal work and enjoy different possibilities to work collectively. So the idea it's also to improve in certain circles, to promote that we can learn collectively, but also to develop the consciousness to amplify the value of what we are doing, of what the people is doing. For example, in that context of the collab store, that we are not only occupied with selling, but the meaning of selling. For example, one organization that was offering a product, of course, it's not only selling part of its culture, but it's also transcending that with that work, the meaning of what they have. So when a person it is to add value to what we are doing personally, and to make visible what is invisible in those contexts, and so making more reflexive processes, for example, of buying things. So what we are saying in Collab Store has a story, promotes a change, promotes a concept which goes beyond the simple act of selling and buying. And it's complemented by the idea of human condition, altruism, value. And we want, for example, to eradicate the idea of charity. And we talk about empowered people who sell things, and they are not asking for charity. They are placed in a place of dignity. I don't like the idea to promote those works in the context of selling things and products which have higher qualities, which is far away from charity, because it has a value, it has a history, and it's very nice. It's a process, it's a complex process, and add values. In certain occasions, in those contexts, we work also with the concept of circular economy, but it's but the idea of the reflection is in this case to promote a deeper value of the act of buying and selling. Michelle, Marcelo, how do you arrive, or how did you manage to work in Mexico? Were you cold, or some people knew you? And how long did you work in a project such as the project you were working in Mexico? And how long were you involved in your project, for example, in Mexico? Thank you, Oscar. We received the invitation from Prosocial through a contact of Paul Atkins with a lady who works with the well-being and happiness in Mexico, in a context of in the International Values meeting. Paul Atkins, one of the founders of Prosocial, invited us. We worked on 2 encounters, 1 or 2 encounters per week during 8 weeks. Each time we were meeting for 2 hours and a half, and it was very good to improve our Spanish skills. This experience allowed us to improve our Spanish. And I would like to ask to excuse me from you because we have a conversation, so I would have to leave you. So I excuse myself from leaving the meeting, but I hope to see you soon. Oscar, I just would like to add something. This project, what we developed, was online. But to make it personally, it depends who are the people who are involved in the project. And I believe that it's possible to adapt the format. In 1 week, for example, you can do something like that. Of course, not the whole project with all the details, but if you have the chance, you can adapt to the main concepts that you want to work with. And develop that work later on. For example, in the idea that we are going to Barichara, so I think we would to work in some projects personally there very intensively, because we are not only but we have a network of wonderful people that can connect in this network. So many of the things that we do with Mari, there are different formats. We do it as a volunteer. So although we don't have time, we also try to add work which is based on as a volunteer. So depending on the needs, we are always, I'm convinced that we can also implement big changes, because all the projects that we are doing are connected with the soul and the love we feel. It's not difficult to make a big network to develop new possibilities for different communities. We are compared with other organizations, we are a small organization, but we work. We keep working for a better world, and so that when we are living this world, I have the chance to leave this world quietly because I have tried to do the best I can during this time of the life that I'm given. That's what I feel deeply in my heart. That's the great challenge that I have, to contribute with a meaningful doing with the life, not only of my own personal life, but the life of others. Thank you very much.
All your words, all your questions, all your gifts. We had to share a little bit of Colapso, very little. We hope had shared a little bit of our hearts together with you. And much, much appreciation for all of you. You're human beings. They're very connected in our hearts. And hopefully we can keep on going. So just one word that we can just give our checkout today. So we can just feel. What is the word that you take with you from this meeting for your day and week today? If you could open your mic and just give the word so we can enhance. Imagine that we have a bonfire in front of us and we just heal and feed this fire with those words. So,
Amor.
Regeneration, inspiration,
Togetherness.
my word, it's that togetherness. Thank you, Carol. If you would like to share your word at Maritza, collaboration, yes, and Maritza. Thank you, ladies. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, everybody. Take care. Solidaridad. Thank you, Maritza, for that word.
Solidarity.
May our fire be burned in the smoke and spread the whole world with this energy of collaboration, solidaridad, togetherness, and all of this that we have just posted. Thank you so much. We see you next week. You guys, facilitators, we see you tomorrow.